Hello everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. I hope everyone is still staying healthy, staying safe. And I am Bryanna, obviously, you guys know that. But today I'm going to be presenting a little thing I have created for you guys, which will examine the portrayal of Satan in Paradise Lost and kind of put that in the same thoughts, compare it to the representations we have seen in modern television. I have chosen 3 different television shows, which I believe are 3 of the more popular shows in the current time. So I have my notes here, and let's get started. All right, so the character of Satan, Lucifer, Morningstar, the Dark Lord, the Devil, whatever else you want to call him, is perhaps one of the most complex characters to have been created and is often considered to be one of the greatest characters in all of British literature. And in John Milton's Paradise Lost, Milton created the devil into a character that was perhaps more human than any of the characters we see in the story, and creates a character that readers can really sympathize with, which is an interesting little tidbit. And according to Milton scholar Neil Forsyth in his essay titled Satan, very relevant, he says that Milton's Satan evokes many readers' sympathy, both because of what he says of himself and of what the narrator, perhaps not quite intentionally, reveals about him. We are told he is capable of love and jealousy, despair, and remorse. Interestingly, and I think many people have already seen this and know about this, the devil is still prevalent in our society. Society is still obsessed with the devil. And this is especially seen in these popular modern television shows that I have chosen, which are, for this presentation, Lucifer from Netflix, Supernatural from the CW, and The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina from Netflix. In these shows, it is interesting to see that the character of Lucifer or Satan is often either the main character or a important secondary character. And these portrayals often align themselves very closely with the character of Satan that John Milton created almost 3.5 centuries ago. And this is especially relevant when you consider the portrayal of the character's history, appearance, relationships, and the overall persona. So in the essay by Neil Forsyth that I mentioned earlier, he says that there is no mention of Satan, only a talking snake, in the book of Genesis. Indeed, Satan's appearances in the Bible are decidedly few and non-consistent. And upon reading that, I wondered just how Milton and others, especially being several centuries apart, created this character. How did this character even come up, and why does it seem that these portrayals have very similar attributes and characteristics? So I brought up this quote from Kelly Wyman. I'll move my little thing so you can see the full title. Okay, so I found this essay, article, whatever you want to call it, from Kelly Wyman, titled "The Devil We Already Know: Medieval Representations of a Powerless Satan in Modern American Cinema." So I began to see that the character of Satan is more interpretive than I'd previously thought. And she says that the overall debate about Satan and popular ignorance of him allows filmmakers the opportunity to illustrate varying interpretations. Films become a way to investigate the devil's character. Popular cinema has the ability to fill the void of knowledge about the devil. These inconsistent portrayals also have the ability to infuse a lack of meaning into the devil by representing him in so many ways that one becomes confused about his place in Christianity. So, according to this, in the same way that John Milton created Satan as a character that the readers weren't sure was the true villain of the story, modern interpretations also lend their part in blurring the lines that are drawn between antagonist and tragic hero. And moving on, one cannot talk about Lucifer without talking about his appearance, especially since it plays such a large role in both Paradise Lost and the modern television productions that I have chosen. So we are going to start with Paradise Lost. There we go. in which Satan takes many forms throughout the story, and each shape he assumes lends to his descent into evil and darkness. At the beginning of the poem, the reader meets Lucifer after he has been thrown into hell and chained to the fiery lake, where he turns to Beelzebub, says, "Man, you look bad." We've already read that part, that we all know that part. But I'm focusing on the part after that, where Lucifer is described with head uplift above the wave, and eyes that sparkling blaze, in bulk as huge as whom the fables name of monstrous size. So immediately after Satan's fall from grace, and before setting off on his quest to corrupt humanity, Satan is this immense and opposing huge figure, a monstrous titanic figure even. And as the story progresses, Satan assumes more forms that tend to dwindle down in their majesty and greatness until we finally see him take the form of the fabled snake in Book 9. An animal who is described as the fittest imp of fraud and the wily snake, whatever slights none with suspicious mark, as from his wit and native subtlety proceeding, which in other beasts observed doubt might beget of diabolic power, active within beyond the sense of the brute. So while Lucifer is still considered beautiful in the form of the snake, this is the form that he and his fellow fallen angels are cursed to assume as a crowd of ugly serpents, as they are described as in Book 10. And it is this description of Lucifer as the snake in the garden that has led me to make these connections with the 3 television shows that I have chosen in terms of appearance. So at this point in time, I think the trope of the devil being characterized as tall, dark, and handsome kind of verges on cliche at this point. But I think there's also a reason why the term devilishly good looks even exists, and we have the reason right here. And these are seen, and I have examples here from Lucifer and the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, in which both portrayals of the devil follow very closely along these attributes, these aforementioned characteristics, aforementioned beauty. So in Lucifer, the titular character, portrayed by Tom Ellis here on the right, is a tall and dashing man with dark hair and dark eyes with a posh British accent. And in the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, it is also very similar, where we see the Dark Lord is being played by Luke Cook, who honestly looks like he could have walked out of a Renaissance painting, in my opinion. So looking at these portrayals and the numerous others that have been produced that involve the character of the devil, of Lucifer, I looked back at the description of the snake in Paradise Lost and came up with a conclusion of my own. And that was that perhaps Lucifer chooses to appear tall, dark, and handsome in all of these television shows because of the same reason why Satan chose the snake to tempt Eve with in Paradise Lost, which was their appearance already implies that they will be manipulative, therefore whatever slights none would suspicious mark. If one already appears suspicious, then no one would really think it was odd or weird that someone is doing suspicious things. And perhaps the reason why Satan has most often been portrayed by handsome men, especially presently, it is because their beautiful exterior often hides a horrible looking interior. In Lucifer, the devil hides his true face from nearly everyone because it's so horrible to look at. I have provided a little picture for you there at the bottom right hand of the screen. And this is a face that causes him not only to hide it, but it is a face that causes him great shame. And this type of exterior-interior sort of battle is also seen in the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, in which the Dark Lord appears to the main character, Sabrina Spellman, as a gigantic, terrifying goat-human hybrid with gigantic horns and cloven hooves. And in comparing these 2 television portrayals of Lucifer with the character we see in Paradise Lost, I have found that almost every character, every type of incarnation of the character of the devil appears beautiful and suave at some point in the story, but each ultimately hides an interior that exposes his evil and terror. And another aspect of this character that I'm going to examine will be the woman. Upon studying Paradise Lost and all of the modern versions of the character of Lucifer, I have found that, interestingly, there's a correlation in all of the portrayals in that in every version, Lucifer interacts with a woman in some way, especially after the fall, after his fall from grace. And in Paradise Lost, we can see his interaction with Eve, in which Milton says that Lucifer approaches Eve in the garden, and upon seeing her graceful innocence, her every air of gesture, or at least action, overawed his malice. That space the evil one abstracted stood from his own evil, and for some time remained stupidly good. So basically, upon seeing Eve for the first time, Satan very nearly retracts his own evil because of her goodness. And of course, this wouldn't last. Unfortunately, this wouldn't last. But Satan would eventually embrace the darkness within him and tempt Eve into her own fall, the fall of man. But I found that the story in Paradise Lost has also been is also very similar to what is portrayed in modern television. And I have some examples for you here. So I found it interesting that, like Lucifer in Paradise Lost, each interpretation of Lucifer in modern television had some sort of female counterpart that they interacted with, whether it was a true romantic relationship or just a manipulative kind of creation by the devil. And in Supernatural, Lucifer struck out at the first woman named Lilith to create the first demon as a blow to God after Lucifer's fall from grace. And in my mind, this is a direct parallel between the stories within Supernatural and Paradise Lost, as Satan uses the first woman to strike at God in each version of the story. Eve in Paradise Lost was not turned into the first demon, granted, but she was turned into a vessel. She was still turned into a vessel for Satan's anger and hatred at God, in the same way that Lilith in Supernatural also was. And in Netflix's Lucifer, the devil actually falls in love with a human woman named Chloe. And I have kind of pictured this show as a what if scenario. Basically asking, like, what if Lucifer had actually fallen in love with Eve? Because in Paradise Lost, we see that Eve captured the devil's attention and turned him stupidly good. So upon seeing her, he very nearly, like I said, very nearly went back, very nearly repented. So the television show portraying love between the devil and a human isn't necessarily as wild of a concept as it may seem upon first glance, especially since Milton almost, in a sense, did it first. And in Sabrina, I have supplied this little video for you here, but in Sabrina, Lilith was actually Adam's first wife, so not Eve, Lilith. And though she ran away from him and wandered in the forest for, as she says, for weeks, maybe even years, after that she finds and meets a freshly fallen Lucifer. So let's play this little video here. Okay. Now, this version of the story kind of falls between that scene in Supernatural and Lucifer, and is more of a reflection of what happened in Paradise Lost. Um, Lilith healed Lucifer. They spent their days together in the place where he had fallen, and Lilith loved him. Lucifer may have been capable of loving her in return, but he grew more and more monstrous, literally, with every passing day until he finally turned into the evil goat man human hybrid that we are introduced to at the very beginning of the show. And I've made connections between this version of the relationship between the devil and a woman and the version seen in Paradise Lost. The devil may have found love, whether it be with Eve or Lilith, but in each version, the evil and horror that is within them corrupts them until they really have no choice but to give in to their already corrupt nature, already monstrous nature. And that kind of moves us on to the persona and the mind that are portrayed in Paradise Lost in these television shows. And I think it is a well known fact at this point in the semester that Satan is a pretty messed up guy. Um, he's a character that has struggles, and he struggles with his emotions and with hatred and his desire for revenge, but also with sadness and frustration at what he has lost. And so on the outside, Satan creates a smooth talking, very charming persona that he uses to win people over. And this isn't just the case in Paradise Lost, but also in these television shows. Okay, so in Paradise Lost, in terms of the mind, perhaps one of the most poignant memories or moments, excuse me, moments of Satan's struggle is shown in book 4 as he arrives at Eden at the very beginning of his moments in Eden. And he finally, in my opinion, is kind of allowed to pause and ponder his situation. And in this, he says, "Which way shall I fly? Infinite wrath and infinite despair. Which way I fly is hell, myself am hell. And in the lowest deep, a lower deep, still threatening to devour me, opens wide, to which the hell I suffer seems a heaven." So in this moment, Satan is a reflective, miserable, and perhaps even repentant, if only for a moment, character as he nears Eden. So here, Satan really shows his true thoughts, and how he can see that he is doomed. He himself can see that he is doomed to be the bad guy, not only to others but to himself. And this is very similar to what we see in both Lucifer, or excuse me, just in Lucifer. I have the example from Lucifer here. So, in this clip that I provided for you, Satan struggles with guilt after killing his brother Uriel. Uriel does die in Lucifer. Sorry, Uriel. But he deals with these feelings of guilt, loneliness, and sadness. And I have seen that Lucifer, the show, is perhaps the best example of the devil feeling emotions like these that are also reflected in Paradise Lost. And according to the show's official Wikipedia page, Lucifer gained his devil face because of his self hatred and judged himself a monster, causing him to gain a monstrous appearance. I'm going to play this video for you. I don't think she really wants him, to be completely honest, in my opinion. But um, in or like Neil Forsyth stated, Lucifer in Paradise Lost and also in the television show is a character capable of remorse, guilt, and love among many other human emotions that we see in both Paradise Lost and in the television show Lucifer. And regarding um, Satan's outward persona, he is very persuasive and charming in tempting Eve to eat the forbidden fruit in Paradise Lost, calling her sovereign mistress and complimenting her beauty's heavenly ray. But in a deeper relation to modern television, Satan tells Eve that he can give her what she wants, which, in my opinion, can kind of be summarized down to independence, intelligence, equality, among other things. And through this, he calls into question God's authority in a somewhat reasonable manner. So in this clip from Supernatural, we see Lucifer do very much the same thing. And I'm going to play this for you here, in which Lucifer tries to tempts Nick into allowing him to be his vessel. Okay, so in this clip from Supernatural, Lucifer tempts Nick, the man you see here, in the form of Nick's deceased wife. And Lucifer is trying to tempt Nick to allow him to use Nick's body as a vessel, which would allow him to walk the earth again. So and in this, Lucifer tells Nick that he would have justice for the deaths of his wife and children, and sympathizes with Nick's anger toward God, and tells Nick that he has a choice, that um, Lucifer is angry too that Lucifer's been through the same thing. And like in Paradise Lost, Lucifer is very tempting and charming to those he wishes to manipulate. Okay, so finally, in looking at the representations of Satan in Paradise Lost and in the modern television versions of the same character, you might ask, what does this even mean? Is there more of a purpose behind this very similar characterization? And I think it's safe to say that the devil has been one of the most controversial characters to have been created and portrayed probably ever. So I think that perhaps the reason why the modern incarnations of the character are so similar to the character that John Milton created 350 years ago is because of what was argued in the beginning of this presentation, where Kelly Wyman said that films become a way to investigate the devil's character. And that's in response to a lack of the character in the Bible. And I also propose that these characters are so similar because concepts like good and evil don't change in leaps and bounds over a long period of time. And humans will always be dealing with these emotions and these questions that have arisen in Paradise Lost. And I am going to finish up here with one last quote from Neil Forsyth from his essay titled Satan, that at every turn in the poem, Satan's intelligence and his emotional intensity make the reader challenge easy orthodoxies, even the meanings of good and evil. He may not be a hero in the epic sense, but it is hard to deny him the status of a tragic hero. So Milton's epic poem and the portrayals of the same character of Lucifer in these modern television shows force people to think about their own values and beliefs, just like we have talked about with Paradise Lost. And they also make commentaries on humanity and life that wouldn't otherwise exist without these portrayals, without this big overarching character of the devil. And overall, I think it is through the devil that people can really form deep questions about what it means to be good or evil, and ironically, what it means to be human. Okay, so that is going to be the end of my presentation. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope everything made sense, everything kind of clicked together. I hope everyone stays safe. I hope we can all join back together here soon. And yeah, overall, I just hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something from this. So, all right, we are going to, yep, all right, bye everyone.